actually, I don't remember what was in the brief, but I know what we said in our response to it, which was that we would, as I said before, we'd explore the railway line between Huddersfield and Leeds, which is what we needed to do, and we would look at. I'd forgotten until I watched it again that we would try to do it through a day. So we'd start off in Leeds in the morning, we'd end up at Huddersfield at night, and we would explore all the places in between, and the different character of those places, and the different landscapes, and the different weathers, and the different sorts of people who were using the trains. I think that was pretty much all we said, but I did say, I know we said in the response that we would interview people and weave those interviews into the film, and I don't know why we never did that. But I know there was another film commissioned at the same time, which did involve quite a lot of interviews with people using the train, which might be why you kind of let us get on and do something a bit more wacky.
I don't think we knew what you were going to do. just went with the process. I mean, I think for us it was quite important that what you were saying, the way we were screening it, not in a traditional venue or not, I mean, this is maybe 10 years ago, people weren't watching everything on their phones either. So seeing it from the station platform and just being able to see it and catch a glimpse of it maybe every day on your journey and getting little bits of it and not have lots of voiceover or lots of text or lots of interviews was quite a really strong approach to it, I think. And I think that idea of, just from what I was saying about, being in Dewsbury train station and just seeing the patterns of people, kids going to school, kids getting off, going into Leeds, shoppers starting to come on, mums and kids, people going to Manchester Airport, just seeing that as kind of the fulcrum for people going up and down the line was quite an important thing to show, rather than just seeing the isolation of the station, but just seeing it as Dewsbury as a connecting point, really. And I love that sense of the day unfolding and the busyness of Leeds, and then that absolute deadness of Murfield train station, which, if anybody's been there, you'll know what it's like to end up at Murfield train station. So yeah, I don't think.
No, you were really.
I don't think we asked for any editing or did any.
I don't think so. No, you've always been good at that. Yeah, and I think I also wanted to do is have this kind of city symphony, of West Yorkshire, because I've been watching quite a few, and a film about Berlin, and then Man with the Movie Camera. And this, this sense that you could just have really quite nice experimental video techniques, which aren't complicated and nothing innovative, but bring them to West Yorkshire. And this is a vibrant place. It's visually fantastic, and it's a wonderful opportunity to kind of, like I said before, just mess about creatively and play, and just create patterns and sound and image. And mix it all together in the travelogue. Yeah.
Brilliant. I love the term city symphony, you said?
Yeah.
Can you expand a little bit more on that?
It's a genre of film. It's been around for as long as film. Really kind of it's a kind of exploration of a place, or a city, in often a kind of more experimental style than a documentary, and I think Man with a Movie Camera is possibly the earliest iteration, which was I think it was Odessa. It was it may have been 2 Ukrainian cities, by Zigo Vertov, and it was just a day through Ukrainian city, with all sorts of experimental filming techniques, and a celebration of the city and the bustle and bustle of life at different points of day and different parts of the city. So our approach wasn't innovative in any sense. It was a kind of let's just take that celebration of a city with the rhythm in image and sound, and just transplant it here and see what we can do. And a lot of it just came out of taking endless footage and then just messing about, playing in edit and seeing, what we could do, and riding up and down the train line in the cab.
With the driver?
With the driver, yeah, it was great. We had like full clearance, and we were in the cab. The driver had about 5 cameras, just capturing everything we could, because you never get an opportunity to do that again. And we'll just have footage that we could potentially use forever, which meant that we could then use a lot in the video. So yeah, I don't know, I'm rambling, but that was.
No, that's brilliant to hear. I mean, to get full clearance to be able to ride up and down the train line feels like a treat.
Yeah, just in the driver's seat with the driver and his supervisor, and also listen to their stories, which were quite often about grim things happening on the railway line. But, yeah, it was kind of actually just having that. Everyone uses the train all the time. But to actually sit at the front and see the countryside coming towards you is a completely different perspective, and it was really a real privilege. It was really great to be able to do that. A lot of the filming on the stations we just had to do sort of surreptitiously, because it turns out Transpennine didn't have clearance to do that. So a lot of the lead stuff was done on iPhones. And just us sort of lurking around with cameras and then quickly getting on trains before anyone spoke to us. So yeah, it was kind of, a lot of it was kind of guerrilla kind of style.
Brilliant, because my next question was about how was this filming process happening in terms of the people that were involved in the footage as well. Travelers, anyone you knew beforehand, or was it fully organic?
Just organic. Kevin's in there. There's one shot of Kevin. Yeah. Sitting there looking out the window. But everybody else in it was just member of the public. And we did. If anyone was being sort of focused on, we spoke to them beforehand at Dewsbury, and then on the train, made sure that they were quite happy to be in the film and they knew what it was going to be about. And then we spoke to the jazz band, Head of Steam, and they were really pleased to be involved. But they're just like, we don't care, just get on with it. So yeah, it was just what we found, which was great. Yeah, and that's to say that the process of just filming and thinking and chatting and just editing, and it just, as it often happens, things come together once you start to gather material and you start to think about what you might do somewhere else, and then that sends you there, and more chance encounters.
Brilliant. How long did the whole process take from filming?
It's fairly short from beginning to end, wasn't it?
A couple of months?
Yeah, I would say
maybe.
From the commission to filming to screening, maybe 2 to 3 months.
Yeah, 3 months max. Yeah.
Well, fast.
Yeah.
I'm going to link back to what you said earlier about men getting excited about trains and travel. I think watching this film also made me excited about traveling in Kirklees and along the West Riding Rail. I had no idea initially about the West Riding pub in Dewsbury. Leeds train station, I've always looked at it as this kind of like transition space where go fast because you're going to be in October. Then Head of Steam has been a place where I've been going throughout the years because it's great that we have this so close on our doorstep. My question here would be, how do we learn about place through this film?
To an extent, there was an imposition on place by us when we made it, which we sort of visited these places and we thought, well, that's what this is like. Let's kind of emphasise that, but not completely. As Nancy said, Mirfield is a strange place. Mirfield train station has always been a strange place to be. There's never anybody else there, apart from the only person we bumped into was a monk, which
features in one of the other films.
Which would segue into other films, but we didn't. So to an extent there was, we thought, well, this seems quite a dead place. Let's make it look like a dead place. And then Dewsbury was like, it just rains It always rains. Whenever we come to Dewsbury, it rains. So that's going to be a feature of Dewsbury. Obviously, it doesn't really, and to that extent, there was a kind of an attempt to kind of impose a character on the place, which didn't always come from there. But it's still, the film is still a snapshot of those places at that time, and you do get a sense of the variety, and quite different. You've got Leeds, which is just thriving, and then you've got Midfield, which wasn't at that point. So there is a sense. I think you do come to understand the place better through it. I think.
Some of the editing decisions, were they informed by kind of like your experience of the places? I'm talking about the moments in the film that are quite fast paced and they have these kaleidoscopic effect, and then we're going into small, slow paced kind of like shots of areas like Batley or Murfield.
But that was kind of I really wanted the film to have a kind of verse, chorus, or a different rhythm for every place, and every part of the journey had to have a different feel and a different rhythm. That was something we really wanted to do. So Batley, there was this sense that you've got these angelic characters who come and voluntarily clean the station. So we kind of made it, almost sort of heavenly, which really is an imposition of character on a place. There was that thing we need, that we really needed to make sure that we didn't kind of repeat ourselves from place to place and joining journey to joining journey. So that was a clear editing decision. Yeah. Did that answer the question?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
I think it's more of an interpretation of place than an imposition, and I think you've captured that really well, and you and I both know that line really well anyway, so I think it would reflect a lot of people's experience of the difference between Leeds and Huddersfield and those stations in between, and you get those little vignettes of characters like the two ladies sitting on the bench at Dewsbury, which is often a place where you are waiting because trains can go past or they can be quite late there, and you just get a real sense of the difference, and we don't say this explicitly, but if you know, it's what 20-minute journey between Leeds and Huddersfield, so it's actually quite a short distance, but massive variety between that bustle of Leeds and then the kind of more laid back in Huddersfield. You've got to the end of your journey, or you're there's some nice pubs there, or sort of waiting around in the middle, and I think it interprets the place really well in a way that a lot of people would recognise.
Mm-hmm. This is quite interesting because Huddersfield train station is having a bit of a facelift now. So the station that we're seeing in the film now is not going to be the station that we're going to see in the future.
And Felix is gone.
Yeah.
Felix the station cat is gone.
Huddersfield's best export. Yes. So in terms of the kind of like identities of the places and deciding to do sort of screenings inside the train station, how was that kind of like live cinema experience received?
Just really well, just like really, really well. I mean, I think people love to see their place on film, don't they? It doesn't matter, or to spot their place on film, or to see the Batley sign or the Dewsbury sign, to just really locate that. It gives a, recognition of their place and a kind of credibility, I guess, to it. So the screenings that we did on the train platform were just amazing. I think we had to do it, I can't remember what time of year. Do you remember when you filmed? Was it summer?
Yeah, we filmed over summer.
Yeah, so it must have been early autumn, and it must have been dark enough for the screening to work. So it was probably around dusk in sort of October time, about 6 or 7 o'clock. And it involved, quite a lot of lifting chairs and sofas onto the platform at the very far end on the Leeds, going into Leeds side, and lots of officials from Transpennine came down, but then we got a real local audience, people who were just intrigued by the idea of sitting on the train platform and watching some films on a screen. So really well received, and they've been really well received when we've shown them again at other events as well. So we had a screening in Dewsbury Town Hall, this film and other films as well. And again, we get people coming to see this kind of film. We've shown these with heritage films as well, but there are a lot of people who come out for the kind of heritage films, but also really enjoyed seeing contemporary life reflected and seeing things a little bit of a different angle and not just always looking at the past of the area. So they've been really well received.
Transpennine were initially quite cross that Murfield was in there because they didn't stop at Murfield. Can you take that out? Because
there was some we discovered strange rivalries between Transpennine and Northern Red. And I think there was some. I think Transpennine was up for its franchise, wasn't it? Which is why it was quite keen to. Well, it was very supportive, I have to say, and keen to be involved from a community and social perspective and facilitate things and to be doing something out in the community. So, yeah.
Brilliant. When we had a chat previously, you mentioned how this kind of enabled a series of other short films around place. And I think you used the term, was it mosaic of community voices? Mm-hmm. Which I absolutely love, and maybe you can tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, I guess this was quite early on in our programme. By the time that we'd done this, we'd maybe been there for a year, 18 months or so. And our approach as Creative Scene was with our creative producers to just really embed ourselves in the community and try and find the alternative stories and the alternative people, or spot the kind of alternative things that weren't necessarily getting the headlines and weren't necessarily things that people knew or thought they knew about Dewsbury or Batley. So we were beginning to stitch together this mosaic of what that North Kirklees area looks like, and which isn't necessarily what people perceive it to be. It's an area that it was really significant to us as well as a team. I think in our first 8 or 9 months when we started, we didn't have an office space. So myself and at the time Vicky, our producer, we were remote working and we were going into various different places and meeting up in different places. And I was stationed in the Wetherspoons in Batley a lot of the time, and Vicky was in various cafes, and that was a really good way to just get to know the area and to get to know people and to kind of spot how things worked. I guess you could say it's a sort of, loosely sort of psychogeography approach to just sort of mapping it by experiencing it and looking at what we're seeing, what we're experiencing, and what's that bringing forward in us. So we then wanted a way to tell those individual stories so that at this stage when we were doing the Creative Scene programme, we could expand our reach, get more people involved in thinking about other arts and culture, and just kind of move out of the mainstream really. There's a usual set of people who put their hands up and say, yeah, we want to do something artistic, or we want to bring our children along to something, but this was a way to just kind of explore in a bit more depth and just go really wide, I guess. And I think we had maybe a dozen or so ideas of things that we'd spotted and said to Alistair, we want, I think, are they 3 minutes or so films? We kind of proposed half a dozen or so, there's this group or that group or this area, and I think you came up with a few others as well, and then it was a process of speaking to people and saying, do you want to be filmed, and can we fit this in the timescale, and does that have some quality to it? And I think most people responded positively.
I think there was only one person that I approached who it didn't work out. Everybody else we made a film with.
Yeah.
Great. And how did that process look like from kind of like the first stages of connecting with communities to actually embedding yourself as a filmmaker within those communities? How did that look like?
Nancy gave me a list of people and numbers, and I went and spoke to them. No, it's not entirely true, because we spent the morning, and remember we spent the morning in Cleckheaton, wandering around and talking to local business owners and looking at potential subjects. And I think you mentioned the Petanque Corps and the Petanque Club. So I followed that up, and it was just a process of taking some of the leads from Nancy, the Underwater Hockey Club and the Petanque Club,
the cafe,
and the shop, and then I really wanted to film on a farm and in a mill, so I just got in touch. I thought there must be, there's got to be a farm in Dewsbury because there's so much
greenery.
Yeah. So I just found, I found a farm where it looked like they might be amenable to. They had some sort of social media presence, and I thought they might be amenable to being featured. And I just, basically just got in touch with them at the carpet mill in Dewsbury, Cold, and in each case, if someone said they were interested in being involved, then I would go out and spend the morning with them, or in some cases, a whole day, and really sort of spend time with them, looking at what they were doing, talking to them about what they were doing, thinking about what might work and whether there'd be a story there and could tell. So it was, I'd just turn up without a camera and just talk and wander around and sometimes just be treated really nicely by people like the farmers and the mill owners. They would just spend a whole day with me, sort of wandering around and showing off what they had and being really proud of it, and wanting to tell their stories and really quite keen to be involved. So it was a great experience. It's really eye-opening for me. If you're curious, if you're nosy, then being allowed into people's lives and finding out what they do and how all these different things work is just great. A real privilege. And then I would go back and film. Just sort of, I'd lurk in the background, or we get a lot of footage, and then when it was right, get interviews. And does that answer?
Yeah. We've got 5 of the short films that we are going to be screening today. So we've kind of curated these in 2 small categories. Shall we have a look at the cafe and underwater hockey films, have a bit of a discussion, and then we'll move into the next 3.
My name's Emma. I'm the owner of the Pie Shed. I've lived in this area all my life.
Well, the cafe we knew because sadly it's not there in Dewsbury anymore. It has moved to Murfield and it's bigger and just as nice. So I stop by there sometimes for a sausage butty. But we knew the cafe because we used to go there and get lunch when we had a special occasion, and could just see the hard work and knew that it had been built up from scratch by a family, and that sense of people really coming and using it and enjoying it in an area where there just really isn't very much like that. So we knew Emma from the cafe and had a chat with her about getting involved, and she was, just really happy to share her story. And I think it's a really heartfelt story and very genuine about what she's done and why she's done it and what she gets out of it, really. The hockey club, I can't remember. Did you find them, or
I think somebody,
how we came across them?
Somebody in the office, somebody at the creative scene knew somebody who was a member, or I think they knew one of the lads who was in the club, and so it was quite a tenuous relationship. But then I just followed it up, and went to see them. And again, they were really, they were super friendly, super nice people. But they said that I had to play 1 week, and then if everything went well, I could film the next week. So it was. That makes it look tamer than it is. It is. Tom, you said brutal.
I said mad.
Mad. Well, it's mad, and it is absolutely.
She said aggressive.
Yeah. And you are constantly sort of trying to work out what is going on underwater, whilst being battered in the face with flippers, and then having to come up for air, gasping with snorkels and masks, and then diving back down again, trying to work out what's going on and being kicked again. It's like, I think they were expecting me to be worse off at the end of the session than I was, and they're like, oh, you did all right. Obviously it was useless to play it, but I just survived. So then I went back and I gave them all GoPros. I think I stayed above water on that one. I think I might have filmed all the above water stuff and all the underwater stuff with them. And it was just, and what was kind of nice about it was like, who knows about this? You know,
Yeah.
nobody. I've never met anyone who knew about it. You know.
Well, there's not much you can tell me about North Carolina, but I've never heard of them.
Yeah. I know, and they are world class players. You know, they they're members of Team GB and they're winning in championships across the world. So it's not just that it's like a fringe. I mean, it is a fringe thing, but it's the best players in the world are coming from Batley. What an amazing story. You know.
When the title came up, I thought, oh, it's a joke. It's like Peter Cook and Dudley Moore had a sketch teaching ravens to fly underwater. I thought it's in the same category, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's an actual thing, and it's still going strong. Not in Batley Underwater Hockey Club doesn't exist anymore. I think it's now York. But everyone who plays. You know, they still play. It's still still international sport. So.
It's fascinating. I mean, this was one of the sort of most common comments that we've heard from people visiting the exhibition, that there's this wealth of activity happening in Kirklees that we probably didn't know of. Mm-hmm. So coming together in this kind of like film festival, film screening format, it truly feels celebratory of the different pockets of Kirklees in ways that might not be as common.
Yeah, and that was a key aim, wasn't it? To tell positive stories.
And different stories. Yeah. And I think you get a sense from that and from the cafe as well of, how much of the specialness about an area is driven by the kind of individual passion of an individual. I think the girl there mentioned it was a teacher at primary school who got her involved, and sometimes those things are really influential, but can be quite fleeting. If that person moves on, then, the club moves to York or whatever, but it leaves a legacy. And, we did some work with Batley Bulldogs and their girls team as well, where we actually worked with the girls team and produced a play and toured that play around the Yorkshire region, which was based on the girls rugby club, which were the first young women's rugby club to tour to Australia, and they were winning prizes left, right and centre. And that came about because the dad of one of the girls, they used to play rugby at primary school, but when his daughter got to secondary school, it wasn't on the curriculum anymore. So he said, right, I'm starting a girls rugby club at Batley Bulldogs, and off they went. And within 2 years, they were winning everything. So those kind of,
the local
people
activists.
making things happen from their passions and sort of engaging other people and, being really from the community and bringing people together. There's some really strong stories from that.
I've forgotten about that one, because I made a film about them for you as well.
I think you did, yeah.
I'd completely forgotten about that. Yeah.
You mentioned that you've given the underwater hockey team GoPros for them to film themselves. That's really strong in the sense that you put the filming tools in the hands of, communities.
And people who, could actually use them and
Swim
wouldn't
with
drown.
What was their kind of like experience of working with you in this way?
They were, they really enjoyed themselves. They just like, it meant that they couldn't quite get as aggressive and with each other as they might ordinarily have done. But
So you teamed them with the GoPros?
Yeah, but they were just, they were like, oh yeah, let's give it a go. That sounds great. Yeah, really up for it. Which again was pretty much the experience with everybody. Everybody in the films was keen to just be a part of what was going on. Like Emma in the cafe, Emma was, like many people being interviewed, incredibly nervous about it. But then, she was great on camera, and her stories are just, and as Nancy said, it's a really heartfelt story. And there were bits in there that I didn't use, that, as ever, there are really great stories that you think actually can't put that on camera. She might have, anyway, I can't. But the hockey team were I don't think anyone had ever asked, let's make a film about you. I think that was, they'd always assumed that what was important to them was of no interest to anybody else. So, you know, when I turned up saying, I want to make a film, you know, that as people enjoy seeing their place on camera, they enjoy seeing themselves and their community on film, and especially when it celebrates it, you know, and shows it in a positive light. So, yeah, I think we're like, yeah, that sounds great, let's go for it. And then they could use it, you know, but they could use that film for their own purposes.
The short films, they do feel very authentic in how they're, you know, communicating what's unique about themselves, about the place that they're in, about the kind of like impact that they make in the local area. And that's quite a special thing, because I think, you know, we live in a world where content is coming to us left and right, and we're not even paying attention to what we're seeing sometimes. So then when you get something like this intervening in the kind of like visual discourse, it feels, it feels quite special. What's kind of happened in terms of your relationship with these communities after making the films together, after, you know, releasing the film so other audiences could see them also?
Well, I guess the point of making the films was not necessarily to continue a relationship with that hockey club or that cafe or that group, but it was just to sort of, I guess, build a picture of the communities, the people that we were working with, so that we as a creative producing team could understand better the people that were there, the places that were there, and bring voices about what they might want to get involved in beyond this film, or what their brothers and sisters or family members might want to get involved. So it wasn't really, I guess it wasn't sort of transactional in the sense that we were saying, do this and then we'll do something else, or you have to come and be part of this. It was just very much, you know, as Alistair says, we want to make something about you. This is a brilliant story. It is something that you can use. It's you telling your story. It doesn't have a purpose beyond that, but it really did help us, you know, throw a light on all the different communities in North Kirklees and really understand and connect with people, because we had all those people in those groups on our mailing list. And then if we were doing a show or a film screening or a community play, you know, people would come along, not always to get involved as a participant, but, you know, as part of the community, seeing something that we've done and coming along as an audience.
Great. We have 3 other films from this pack of short films. Shall we have a look and then come back with some reflections?
I'm Brother George, and I belong to the Community of the Resurrection, which is a monastic community in Mirfield.
In the monastery, we're looking at this community that kind of like lost its privacy, in a sense. And then in, what was the third? The second
Mill.
The mill. Kirklees has got this like rich tradition of heritage practices, and now we're looking at the only mill that still produces carpets in the area. So a part that, you know, these films that you guys have made are also amazing archival resources. They feel very relevant in the context of realizing what we have and what we're losing and what we need to protect, perhaps. Can we talk a bit about that?
Shall I?
Yes, Alistair, if you're on.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it, that the most successful business model there is the monastery. Yeah, so they had you could go on retreats there. So there were, as I said, loads of people go on a retreat there, and they do get quite a bit of money. They had a large donation for building the new monastery, so they were doing very well financially. But yeah, the struggle that the other 2 industries were facing was obvious. the mill, I think, continues to run quite well because they manage to constantly find new markets, and there is always that premium. I think there's a premium on that heritage as well, which they are quite successful at marketing. But it is just a remnant of what it was. And then we made some more films, didn't we, after that for Woven, and I went out and looked at other aspects of the textile industry in the area, and the pockets of it. There are lots of little industries that are still working away. So the cultural capital isn't on its own.
And all quite. We did after, as you say, that series for Woven. We did another 4 or 5 films where we actually specifically looked for that lineage, if you like, of textile heritage, which has over the years transformed from those, mechanical
hands-on.
What are they called? Looms,
yeah.
Which are fantastic to watch, aren't they? Fantastic to film that rhythm. But some really, really highly specialised textile industries using, I don't know, weird kind of fabrics. Or there was one that did they make something like heat-resistant things for McLaren Formula One? They were the company in the whole world making this. That goes in this bit of weaving it for all the McLaren F1 cars in the world. Wow. So there's that heritage is a line that goes through and does change. But it's lovely to see, that sense of history behind some of the founding of the monastery, the founding of the textile industry, and how that's all related, I guess, to the place of North Kirklees and the River Calder and the reasons why those industries are there and support so many people.
Again, there's that pride, everyone who was there was proud of what they were involved in. And, especially with the mill, technically, it's really complicated, and the people who work there are incredibly highly skilled. They've done it, and it's just, you just don't really realise until you go in and you're shown how it all works, how complex it is, and how skilled these people are, and also, those skills are disappearing as well. I think the people who could repair, the number of people who could repair the looms was diminishing, and that was a real problem. So those industries are hanging on. People are really proud of them, but they are precarious. Then it's coming back. I think the shoddy industry is coming back. There's been people trying to make resuscitate the shoddy industry in West Yorkshire, which had completely vanished for decades. So it's
when it comes to when it comes to the farm, we've got this kind of very amusing testimony from the father who discusses his young days and being in love with the other farmer's daughter. How can you get these very kind of intimate vignettes from people when you go in to document something like their business?
He would talk all day. He did talk all day.
I think, Alistair, you have to acknowledge that you've got a real skill in doing that, because it's not everybody that can do that, and to be faced with a camera in your face and kind of being able to talk naturally like that. I think you need a filmmaker who can work really sensitive with the camera and with the interview techniques as well. And I think the way in which you kind of immerse yourself before and go ahead, understand the business, have those conversations with people without going straight in and going, I'm filming you now, and sit there and do this. It's very naturalistic, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, which we might come back to the sense of meeting people in their place. It's a case of, I'm going somewhere, and I am a guest. I'm invited, even if I've been to an extent invited myself. But you have to be respectful, and you have to be just have to listen. A lot of what I do is just prompting and then just listening, and also being all I am interested. You know, I don't have to pretend to be interested. These people are interesting, and their stories are interesting, and a lot of it's just a conversation. You know, and I cut myself out of all the films. I just have a conversation and then use what people have told me. It's. But Gary was a character for sure. He is. And the contrast between him and his son was quite interesting. You know, it's like I just fell in love with a farmer's daughter, and it all happened. And someone thought, I went to university, and I've travelled the world, and I know how to do it. And I was trying to kind of you could see that. But then they loved each other, you know. So and they lived side by side. So.
And working together for the same purpose.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, Gary did less. He spent more time riding around, telling people what to do and being ignored. So, yeah.
And with the monastery, you said that you met one of them in Murfield Station. Is this the?
Yeah, we met a monk in Murfield Station when we were doing filming Riding West Riding, and that's when I discovered there was a monastery in Murfield. I was like, oh, again, you know. And you can see it on the train.
Yeah, I think I've seen it, but never really realised what it was or how significant it was. And they have a beautiful retreat. I mean, you can just go and spend a night there like a hotel. You don't have to go on a retreat. It's a beautiful place to stay, and really nice conference facilities. But people do go on retreats there for a weekend, and it's obviously a really popular part of modern life to get away and back to that sense of solitude. So, yeah, there's quite a lot of those moments of exploring what the filmmaking is going to be by just sort of being out in the environment and spotting subjects and then finding that story.
I think actually with the monastery I didn't go beforehand. That was just all done. Yeah. Thinking about it, I emailed them, and then about 2 months later they responded and said, "Oh yeah."
It took a while, didn't it?
Yeah. Come along. It'd be great. And they just said, "Oh, just film what you want." So I just wandered around filming what I wanted, and then Father George gave me the interview, and then I said, "Oh, I'm about done." And he said, "You going back to Huddersfield?" So I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Hang on a minute, can you give me a lift?" He disappeared, and he took off his habit, and he came back to normal clothes and an old Parker. And I just drove him into Huddersfield and had a really good chat on the way. And you'd never, you know, if you saw him on the street, you just never had a clue he was a monk. So again, you know, really. Yeah, he was just lovely, you know, really interesting character, and I think they rotate who has what position. So it was just, I think maybe I was lucky. He was the person who made the decisions at that point in time, and he was really up for it. Could have been somebody else who was like, "Nah, I'm not bothered."
True, but at the same time, from how we've been talking so far, it feels like the I don't want to call it strategy because it feels too rigid, but your approach to it feels more organic in the sense that you allow people to be people first, and then the camera is introduced.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And that idea of what do you want to say and what's your story, rather than we're making a film about something.
It's a voyage. They're all voyages of discovery for me. You know, how does that work? You know, what's the history of this place? You know, what do you do? You know, it's so I'm never going in with a preconception really of what story I want to tell. It was always, you tell me your story. You know, they were all great. Lucky.
There's a lot of discussion, and you know, you've used the term as well to meet people in their place, where it comes to participatory practice, to collaborative practice, to ethical practice, to socially engaged practice. And I thought it might be useful for us to unpack a little bit what that might mean in terms of meeting people where they are.
Shall I?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So I thought about it because I know we talked about this before, and I thought initially it is just a case of going to that place, you know, physically.
But it's some more nuance in that.
Well, it is, yeah, and that's why I thought more about it. And it's not just that physical, you know, tell me about your place. And all of these stories are very much place based. You know, it's Emma's cafe. You know, it's the monastery, it's the farm, and people's stories are inextricably linked with those places. But it's also the attitude. I think it's, you know, of going, and those people are. Again, I'm a guest, so you know, you've got to be respectful, you've got to be polite, you've got to be really sort of like fit in with them. You know, it's never a case that I would ring up and say, right, I'm coming to film, you've got to be ready for such and such a time. It's like, when's going to work for you? And I might hang around for ages until someone's ready. So there's that that attitude of respect, but also that attitude of they're the experts in their story, they're the experts in whatever it is that we're talking about. And there's an attempt to kind of, there's an imbalance of power between filmmakers and their subjects, and there always is going to be, because I'll film in the way I want, and I will take that footage and I will do what I want with it. So it's a case of trying to level that power and recognise that whoever it is I'm filming we're not even equals. They know their place and their story much better than I do. So my job is to kind of listen and try to tease that out of them. So I think there's the attitude really, this is your place. Thanks for letting me in. Tell me all about it. Don't know, is that?
Yeah, and I think our commissions, whether it's the film commissions or other commissions, is about having artists like Alistair who can have that approach and reveal those stories and do it from a sensitive point of view with, as an artist as well, and with a practice which is about storytelling and narrative and revealing what's there, rather than going in with the kind of, we need to make a film about this and it's got to have this and this and like this. It's very organic, I think, both in terms of how the film itself is made and what the subjects tell and how that's what emerges from that story. But when we've commissioned these and put them together, it's quite organic, and we've known we want some things that are maybe people that are slightly different age groups or something from this community and that community, and we want to cover a broad geographical area, but not being very strict about that and going, we have to have that. We're not forcing something to come into being that's not there. It's very much the subject is engaging with it, and they're doing that very, because they want to. They've got a story to tell and they're proud to tell it.
And and there's that sense of making sure that when it's all edited, they are happy with what's been done, and showing people in a positive light. If people have been kind enough to give their time and open up, then the least you can do is treat them well with the final product, and that's guiding principle really, always.
So is there almost like an ongoing relationship in your filmmaking process where you go film, you edit, and then does the content get shared with the communities for them to have a first look?
Yeah.
But I don't think anybody has really asked for any edits. There was one film that we made with a young man who was an artist who did a graffiti arts practice, and it was a really nice film. But as he got older, I think it was maybe about 16 or so when he did the film, for reasons of faith, he didn't want to be part of the series anymore, so he asked us to take it down. So, but I think, that was understandable, and I think that's the only time that anybody said, we want to change or,
Yeah, because it's obvious when you're editing, something's going to annoy you. If you portray someone in a poor light, it's obvious. So,
I know we've done. Sorry, I popped myself into your narrative there. But you have done some follow-up films as well, to kind of negotiate visibility for some of the communities that we showed in the first screening. To show they're still active during the pandemic times, right? So we're talking about two of the first films, the Pie Shed, the cafe, and the Underwater Hockey Club. How was it working through film in a time of social isolation, trying to film activities that are very much about people coming together in physical spaces?
Well, we still had our programme to run during the lockdowns and during COVID, and we're trying to think of ways in which we can still engage with people, tell stories, and make them visible. So we thought one of the ways we could do that was go back to some of the people that we'd made films with in the first series and ask them, how's it going now, and do you want to be part of another series to follow up? So I think that was quite quite revealing, wasn't it?
Mm.
I don't know what it was like from your side of actually physically going out and doing that, and how different that felt.
Well, as we'll see with the Underwater Hockey Club, I didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, you didn't.
Nobody went anywhere. It was all made
Yeah.
up with Zoom footage and archival footage that I had gathered from over the years. And then the cafe, I did go out, but it was socially distanced and there was nobody in it. So yeah, I think it's really weird watching those films again now, because obviously, as it probably is for everybody who's lived through the pandemic, which is a few years ago, everything was turned upside down, wasn't it? And we all behaved in weird ways. So it was, as a filmmaker, it was a horribly frustrating point in time. But then I got work that I would never have got otherwise. So, and working, and you always have to think of new ways. It provided a reason to try to think of new ways to work. So there's always going to be a creative response and a different way of tackling things, given your limitations. And limitations are great sometimes, aren't they? Because you think, I can't work in any other way, so what am I going to do?
Finding alternatives.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And we very much wanted to support the creative community, the arts community, which is largely freelance and dependent on this kind of income to earn during lockdown. So it was great. There were some different ways of working coming from that, and a way to support artists to continue to earn a living differently.
Shall we have a look at the films and then continue
our
conversation? So tell us a little bit more about making these films independent.
So I think there were 5 in total. But these, the Underwater Hockey Club. It's interesting that it was much easier to get more interviews with people for the second film than it was for the first film, because everyone was bored, and they were quite keen to be involved. But there's a horrible thing of filming over Zoom, where it's just all the video quality is just dreadful. But then I that's fine, because that's what everyone was doing in the pandemic. Everyone was on Zoom. That's how people were getting together.
With the hockey club, were you actually filming them appearing on the iPhone, or were you transposed that?
The magic of cinema.
Yeah. But had you thought that before you did the filming, or did you do the filming and then think, that's how I'm going to present it? Or
it was a kind of, by that point, it was a well-worn technique that I'd used on, because I'd made other films. I was supposed to go and film some academic conferences in Sweden and Italy, and they got cancelled because of the pandemic. But they still wanted the films making, so I filmed them over Zoom, which was great. And then that's when I hit on the idea of, how do you deal with this horrible looking footage?
Right.
You just impose it on. I'd got used to kind of working in that way and using that technique. And it that's what everyone was doing at the time, wasn't it? You were sitting in your garden, if it was sunny, having a meeting on Zoom. So it reflects quite well that video experience for lots of people. And so there was that sense of, I can do something with this. As a filmmaker, I can reflect what it was like for people, and that sense of frustration, and where your place becomes your room, not your swimming pool, not your club, and so it can reflect that visually, but like you say, also reflect the resilience and the sense of community that still existed. So it was great to be able to do that, because again, I get out of my own head and out of my own house, even if only virtually.
Shall we open up to some audience questions?
yes, please.
With Riding West Riding, given it was 10 years ago or so.
Yeah.
If you were faced with the commission again now, what would you do differently?
I don't know. I don't know. If I had that creative freedom again, I'd probably do something like that again. It's because you don't get that opportunity. No, it's so rare to be paid to go and do something, make something like that. It's absolutely brilliant. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't look quite the same, but if I had that same sense, same freedom to experiment, then I would do. Yeah, if only you had another few £1,000 to.
Fortunately not.
Yeah.
Have you made any other experimental films since Writing Was Writing?
Not. I've yeah, sort of. I made some. I made a film for a musical performance at Dewsbury Minster about the shoddy industry. There was a musical commissioned by Woven, a musical piece commissioned by Woven about the yarn recycling industry in West Yorkshire, and they needed a video backdrop for the performance. So I was given creative freedom to do what I wanted, as long as it fitted with the theme of the piece, which was about yarn recycling. So that was a chance to experiment again. But no, I don't often. No, most of the stuff I do is far less experimental, which is a shame. But
Maybe now with this we're going to have some opportunities come up. Who went an experimental film?
Yeah, a comment and then quite a big question. The comment is the shorts are sort of object lessons in concise encapsulation. I thought they were really, really well compressed, but I was left with the feeling, and I'm interested in whether you had the feeling that you'd like more, particularly the farm. The farm, I just thought, God, there's so much more to this story, and whether clearly the brief was 3 minutes, jump, bang, but whether there is a sort of an urge to go beyond that. So that's more the comment, although there's an invitation for an answer as well. But the big question for me is your career profile, how you've come from bizarre sort of philosophy, law, and into this your true sort of destiny, as it were. I'm intrigued, as someone who knew what they wanted to do when they left school and have never done anything different. I'm intrigued how much, if anything, of those previous careers are still in you and with you, and do you draw on them, and how relevant are they to the way that you do your art now?
A lot, yeah, to be sure. I mean, 7 years reading philosophy books and teaching philosophy leaves an indelible stain on your character, or perhaps helps structure it. I don't know. But it makes you very. I mean, obviously, it just makes you very thoughtful and reflective. And what I was interested in when I was writing the PhD was about embodiment and a sense of the way that we ourselves as subjects are embodied, and we are in a place. Who we are and how we are depends upon people around us and the landscape and the sort of places that we existed. So that was kind of central to what I was interested in philosophically. And then when I worked in social care for a couple of years, I went from teaching people who teaching undergraduates about Kant and Hegel and Marx to working with people who were non-verbal and who needed high levels of personal care. And that was a great shock for a young 25-year-old man, and it was a big eye-opener as to the differences between us all socially. And then when I was a solicitor, I worked with a lot of people who were poor, with poor mental health, and who were on who through no fault of their own would be tipped into poverty and worse mental health crises, and you learn how to, not all solicitors do, but I learned to empathise with people, and also you develop ways of relating to people, because you can't act for a client as a solicitor if that client doesn't trust you and you can't talk to them. I also, you obviously pick up. I picked up a bit of law, and so I kind of it's useful when you get contracts. But yeah, all of those experiences shape the way that I work with people, and most it's the same for you, I'm sure. But most of your job is interacting with people, and on that basis of that interaction, creating art. And if you can't interact with people and you can't relate to them and you can't have a successful relationship with them, then the art isn't going to be any good either. So everything feeds into it. Does that answer?
Yeah.
No idea whether
I
this
guess it's
was
the thing behind, doing philosophy degrees, and sort of philosophy is about asking questions, isn't it? And I guess that's what I do in my job, is I'm asking questions. What does that look like? What would it look like if we got these people to tell their story and added it to that and brought that to that audience and did it here and did it there, and then trying to work with artists to make that happen. So it doesn't feel, for you maybe, I don't know, I think it was something, it doesn't feel a million miles away from me, for the ways that we both work, and having that kind of, let's create something from that empathy and that question asking and that trying to bring something out into the open. I think in terms of for us, doing something longer, or telling more of that story, wasn't the point of these short films. It was to just go, look at that, look at that, look at that, look at that. Wow, there's all of this stuff happening in North Kirklees that nobody knows about or people wouldn't focus on. And I think because it is quite short form, and it really benefits as well from Alistair's, the way you frame things, I think, there is a really strong visual identity to all of those films that is consistent throughout. So I don't know if there's some legal practice or legal mind that comes to it, but it's quite strong. That
it's lazy filmmaking.
Is it?
Camera on a tripod. Point the camera at something. Isn't that nice?
But yeah, we didn't want to go into the realm of documentary filmmaking, and I think this is what it is, because it's not a documentary. It's not we're trying to expose everything or find out all the mechanics. It's just that little nugget of beautiful story that somebody brings.
I've watched them in that mindset, so in no way was a criticism. It's just the effect is you've tasted something that you'd like more of, and that's the effect on me and others perhaps as an audience. I'm just curious whether it has the same effect as the maker. Do you feel that there's that you'd like to go deeper?
No, I've got like a butterfly mind. I'll look at it, it's great, I'll go and make a film about that, and then that's done, and I'll move on to something else.
I guess you've had much longer conversations with the people that you've spoken to, so you know more of the depth of that story and the breadth of that story, but you're just giving us the little nugget.
And and also, and this is why Nancy, you were really great to have that. Sort of, because I know that when I edited them, you did say, it's a bit long, take that out. It might be 4 minutes long, and you say, can we have it under 3? And you have to go back and you really think, right, okay, that bit's quite interesting, but it's just not as interesting as the other bit, and really sort of hone it down to something. And I think that they really all the films benefited from that discipline. And it's now, if I watch other films that are other people's films that are a bit longer, I'm thinking, bit flabby. Get rid of that. What's this? And it's about what's the essence of the story. Let's get to the essence of something. So it was a great discipline to impose, and I think it's helped me certainly throughout the rest of what I've done, because I'm constantly thinking, can I get rid of that? Can I get rid of that? You know, what? Let's boil it down to the essential story. So no, I'm not. Yeah, I'm always like, once I've done something, I want to move on, and I work quite quickly. You know.
No, I get the butterfly mentality. I don't have it, but I get it.
I'm very interested in, I mean, having lived in North Midlands most of my life, I kind of really got that sense of, you know, what the brief was about, that you did capture the essence, you know, that there's something about, I do recognise myself in those films, and I say apart from the wasp, but that's close to it. But the people, of course, I recognise. And so there is something about that quality of distillation where you've kind of honed it down to something, because I think what comes through to me is how surprising it is that they're not, 10 years old or something, and that they're kind of their time, but they're also very timeless. They kind of speak to me now of that place and those people, which I think really says something about, what you're trying to achieve, and that you did achieve it. It's like really, really great. I suppose one question that's more, which is really more to do with what's been curated today, but I'm just, the bit that's not reflected for me, and I know that this isn't reflective of certainly of creative scenes work, is that most of that was reflective of the white population, and I know that you work right across all the communities, so I'll just maybe just say something about that.
Not all there was a more diverse demographic across the rest of the films. Some of one of the lockdown films was about mosque in Dewsbury and their outreach. And there was the Muslim calligrapher in the first season. So I think it's more of what we pulled out today. I think we're trying to be more representative.
Eastern European, the Bosnian.
Bosnian refugees as well. We're in the lockdown season, lockdown series.
So maybe we can come to an end with a question around how do we reach communities that are usually difficult to reach, so that we can figure out ways of storytelling almost invisible experiences.
Your forte.
Well, I mean, we've been very lucky in the Creative Scene programme to have quite a significant amount of funding over a long period, so that's enabled us to be in that community for a long time and build relationships. And even when some things have closed down or people have moved on, there's usually a bit of a trace through. So, for me, obviously, having those kind of long-term programs which are resourced enough to enable a team of people to be part, in that community, understanding it, spotting opportunities, and rather than just flying in to do a project and going out would be, what I would say is needed to meet that challenge. And I guess that goes back very much to when I talked about, my early career running a community arts project, and like in the 70s, 80s and into the 90s, a lot of areas would have a community arts project that we've funded as part of various strands of government funding that was around at the moment. And sadly, that's not the case anymore, that it's normal that there is, a strong base for community arts practice from which other things can grow. So I think it's, getting back to that idea of how can you have a kind of infrastructure, organisation or organisations that exist in these areas that can be there to create that sense of genuine relationships and agency and trust and all of those things that you need as a precondition to then bringing artists in and making great art and telling great stories.
And then when we find ourselves in these difficult positions where, you know, funding is short or maybe access is challenging, what do we do?
We keep going. I mean, we are having, because Arts Council hasn't refunded the Creative Scene programme in Kirklees, so we haven't got that investment going forward, but we've got some new tranches of funding, and we're doing less, but going deeper and still sort of working with those strong partnerships that we've got. So it means less, things don't go as far anymore, and we keep making the case for this is a really important part of work that needs to go on in communities and in towns, and hoping to influence that. I see too much sort of things coming in and wanting something to happen, and that infrastructure, whether it's in the arts or community arts or whether it's in youth services or community services, is just not there anymore. So it's a bigger problem than the arts. It's very, very hard to go into a community or communities where there's little infrastructure and engage with people, and try and get a bit more of an equitable relationship as well when the imbalances are so severe at the moment.
And as a filmmaker, how does one reach communities that are difficult to reach?
It's hard work, effort. There's no other way around it. You've got to plug away at it. You've got to hunt people, not literally hunt people down. That's illegal nowadays.
We shoot them with our cameras.
Yes. I mean, as with those films, it's a case of looking for interesting stories where they might be, and then you've got to just go out and approach those people and chat to them, and very often the initial response to being asked, "Would you like to be involved in a film?" is wariness, and people are a bit suspicious, and then you've just got to go out and talk to them again where they are, and then they can see that you're just like them, and you're perhaps a bit more interested in most of their friends or their friends and their family, and that you want to hear their story. So effort and being nice. I think is crucial.
So would the takeaway for that be about ensuring capacity, resilience, ethics,
absolutely,
and I don't know, kind of like the
Persistence.
Thank you. Yeah.
Commitment, I guess. Commitment.
And now to finish on a positive, what are some hopes for the future?
Shall I leave the room?
There aren't any.
Well, I really hope that at some stage soon that society, arts, culture will settle down, and that somebody will come up with some strong initiatives that begin to meet the needs of communities and the arts community where there hasn't been any significant investment. In fact, I think a recent report, was saying Arts Council's funding in real terms over the last 10 years has gone down by 40%. So it's nothing like what is needed. And these kind of projects, these relationships, the outcomes, not just in terms of the participants and the visibility of that, and all of the archive footage that's been created. It's so important that it costs so little it costs so little in terms of some of the bigger initiatives that are needed. But I really hope that a future government or this government might step up and take some policy decisions that brings a level of resource back to this work that was very, very dominant. And we are known in Europe for being very good at this kind of work, and was very, very successful in the 80s and 90s, and lots of funding schemes brought together to make sure that this kind of work was there as part of the fabric of regeneration, of place making, of community making. Bring that back again.
As a filmmaker, it's getting cheaper and easier to make films all the time, you know, and people as younger people are able to make films very quickly, very easily, and you know, that democratizes filmmaking. It really makes it open to everybody to start to tell their own stories in a kind of professional way, and that's great. You know, it's really nice for me to go and make a film about somebody in Dewsbury and Cleckheaton, but I don't live there. You know, more people who have the tools to be able to tell their own stories in their own way. That I think would be, you know, progress. Yeah.
Beautiful sentiment from the both of you. So I do hope that, you know, in the coming months and years, there's going to be more attention, more support, more patience, more persistence, more kind of like democracy in terms of how we share skills and knowledge. And great to have you this evening today. Thank you for talking to us about your practices, place, community, and yeah, let's celebrate Kirklees.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.